In the next unit that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the Victorian era in Great Britain, and specifically in this lesson, the rise of the middle class. And before the Victorian era, we see a feudal state in Britain where we have nobility owning the land and passing the land down through generations to generations within their family. And a lot of people would look back on this and say, that might be a little unfair because you have craftsmen and peasants really doing most of the work on the land, with the nobility kind of sitting back and just reaping the benefits from the money that's coming in and really gaining a lot of the money from their father or their grandfather, sending their money down through generations. And in a feudal state, it was almost impossible for the workers like the craftsmen and peasants to own land. Now, with the Industrial Revolution that we just talked about, we see the nobility as the rich and the worker as the poor. But in the Industrial Revolution, a lot of the new products were being made or being manufactured. And this allowed for a lot of investors who wanted to invest money into these new products to get rich, and to get rich extremely quick. This led to many of the people of the nobility, as you can see here, to sell their property that has been given to them, handed down to them through generations, to the workers, because the workers needed property, they had none. So we see an exchange where the peasants were giving money to the nobility, so the nobility would turn around and use that money on products like new clothing, which was being mass produced, and the peasants or craftsmen would turn around and buy property, mainly a Victorian style house. So, as you can see, it was a little change in society, and a new social class emerged, known as the middle class. Now, what is the middle class? The middle class was extremely wealthy, and these workers, who were now rich, now resented the middle class and felt extremely disrespected by the public and nobility. Because of this, even though they were rich, they still were looked down upon as workers or peasants. So, the Reform Act of 1832 was passed through Parliament to try to give the middle class more power. It gave men who owned property the right to vote. Now, this still unsatisfied the middle class because only 1 out of 5 men actually owned property. It was only 1 out of 5 men could vote. It was when Queen Victoria emerged to the throne in 1837 at the age of 18 is when the Victorian age started. Like I said, she came to the throne at the age of 18, and she reigned the throne for 63 years, the longest reign in British history. She preached terms like duty, honesty, hard work, and respectability. Now, mainly she served as a role model to the middle class. The middle class needed someone to look up to because they're in a new state. These people are now rich who have never been rich before and are now owning property. She was kind of a role model or trendsetter because one example of this is when her husband, Albert, passed away, and she decided to wear black for the rest of her life. And now when you think about it, we see widows wearing black too for a long period of time. And during this time, during the Victorian age, many women, many widows, turned to Victoria as an example and wore black too when their husbands passed. And this, especially for the middle class, was extremely powerful because they needed someone to look up to, like we talked about. Also during this time, middle class started buying houses like these Victorian style houses because they wanted to show the public that they were rich too, and they wanted to fit into society with the nobility as people who could vote, who owned property, who were powerful when it comes to money. These houses usually were 3 stories tall with large rooms and massive amounts of furniture. They're extremely overcrowded. The reason for this was because the middle class wanted the public to know they were wealthy, just like the nobility. Houses were overstuffed, like we said, but many of the houses symbolized the growing wealth and importance through decoration inside and out of the house. And here we can see the outside of the houses, Victorian houses. On the next page, this is a master bedroom in a Victorian house. Up here is more of the marble that was used in Victorian houses, and more marble on a staircase. Very elegant, and it served the middle class in a way that they showed the public they were rich.